There's a camp where no phones are allowed. There's a billionaire kid who can't listen to rules. There are alligators, hoverboards, and an evil hypnotist. All coming up on this episode of Bookwards. Hi, I'm Sam, an 11-year-old who reads a lot.
And I'm Dana, his mom, who also reads a lot.
Welcome to Bookwards, where we read and discuss the best kids' books.
We encourage our listeners to read the book before listening, especially because there are always spoilers in our episodes.
To make sure you never miss new episodes and find out what we're reading next, follow us on Instagram and X at BookwardsPod.
Today, we're talking about Gordon Korman's 2021 book, Unplugged.
Let's get started.
To begin, here's a less than 1 minute summary of the book. The main character is a kid named Jett, whose dad is a tech billionaire, and after he gets in big trouble, he's sent to a wellness retreat named the Oasis.
Jett at first is extremely outraged about being plopped down in this place and does everything he can to get thrown out. But over the course of the book, he develops friendships with 3 kids named Grace, Tyrell, and Brooklyn.
So Sam, what'd you think about the book?
Overall, I thought that this was a great book. I thought that there was never a scene where there was nothing happening in this book. I really liked that the author spread out the point of view so that we didn't just see Jett's point of view, but we also saw Grace, Tyrell's, and Brooklyn's.
Yeah, Grace is a girl who's been coming to the Oasis with her mom since she was really, really young, and she's extremely obsessively committed to the place. Tyrell is a kid who comes there because his parents are always trying out new diets and health trends. And then last, there's this girl, Brooklyn, who is very mysterious. Nobody knows who her family is. She doesn't participate in any of the activities, but she weirdly knows a ton about the Oasis. Did you actually like any of these characters in this book?
I would answer yes, but I didn't love a lot of the characters that you would expect.
Okay.
For starters, I liked Ivory. I thought she was a cool villain, like a gangster.
Okay, so the character that you like most was the villain of the book.
I didn't say I like her most, but I definitely like her.
It's not just that she's running an alligator farm, which is a cool crime to commit. And it's not only that she's stealing the money to do it by hypnotizing people, which is a cool way to steal money, but it's also that she's a huge hypocrite because she takes all the money that she makes from her alligator farm and she uses it for all these things that are totally anti the Oasis way of life. Who else was likable in the book?
I thought Jett was clever. A little selfish, though. I think in the beginning of the book, he's super selfish. All he cares about is himself. Even Matt says, if it rains, everybody else gets wet too, not just you.
Oh yeah, I remember. That is a good line.
Yeah, it's a good line. I think this shows how selfish Jett was at the beginning of the book. He says to himself at the end of the book, why am I even staying here? This thing with Ivory isn't my problem. This isn't my problem. This isn't my money. I could go home and my dad will still have a ton of money. Why is this my problem? But he still is bothered that Ivory is stealing other people's money. He still tries to help, and he ends up succeeding.
Well, it's not just that he tries to help. It's more than that. He's the only one who sees what's going on because he's the one who goes to Hedge Apple and realizes that Ivory's been hypnotizing. He goes with Tyrell, and he sees her hypnotizing Tyrell's dad. So he knows that she does this weird hypnotizing thing, and she tries to do it to him. So he realizes how weird it is. And so he goes back and tries to tell everyone, and nobody listens. So he's really trying to save them and their money because it's not his money that she's trying to steal, it's everybody else's. I don't think that Jett decides to save the day at the end of the book because he's come to care about his friends and wants to do the right thing. I actually think he's just a person who's drawn to chaos and mayhem. And so when there's this opportunity to go after a gangster who's running an alligator farm, who's hypnotizing people to steal their money, he's going to go there. He's not just going to sit back. I thought Brandon had a really interesting chapter. We get one chapter from Brandon's point of view. So Brandon is not one of the main kids in the book. His dad played on the NFL and is extremely aggressive. So he goes to the Oasis to try and calm down. And Brandon is also a huge kid who's very aggressive. So he blackmails Jett into giving him Snickers bars in order to not tell on Jett and the other kids for hiding Needles, the baby alligator that they start keeping, not knowing that it's a baby alligator. And he has this chapter where he basically doesn't like Jett, and I found myself agreeing with all the reasons that he doesn't like Jett. He doesn't like Jett because he says, how many people have a 26-year-old, like, handler? That's Matt, right? Matt is an employee of Jett's dad's company, Fuego, who has to come with him to the Oasis and, like, keep him out of trouble. This guy is a coder who took a job at a tech company and instead has to babysit Jett. And Jett has, like, unlimited access to money and has his own handler, and yet can't follow any of the rules, thinks that the Oasis is, like, the worst place on earth, even though lots of people pay lots of money to go there to help deal with some of the issues that they have. And I found myself agreeing with Brandon, who's supposed to be the bully in the book.
So I think Brandon was one of the characters that Gordon Korman could have upgraded.
So I think the dynamic between Jett and Brandon was one interesting dynamic in the book. Jett does deserve a little bit of Brandon's animosity because he is like a spoiled brat who comes in there with his handler, with his money, and acts like this is the absolute worst place on earth, even though it's an expensive wellness camp that people save up a lot of money to go to. So I actually was sympathetic to Brandon in that. But there's other important and interesting dynamics in the book, is the dynamic between Jett and his dad, which is so interesting because his dad's not even in the book. His dad is only mentioned all the time by Jett and sometimes by Matt, but and we hear a lot of the way that Vlad Baranov thinks and sayings of Vlad Baranov. He's obviously has a huge influence and impact on his son Jett, but he himself is not in the book. So what do you think about the dynamic between Jett and his dad?
So I thought that Jett and Vlad both didn't realize how much they influenced each other. Or specifically how much Vlad influenced Jett. I don't think Vlad noticed how much he influenced Jett. And I think Vlad just thinks of Jett as this disappointing son.
Well, we don't know. We don't get anything from Vlad's point of view.
But I think that he, like, if
you imagine
I would that thought, if I was Jett's father, I would think of Jett as a disappointing, troublemaking son. Can't do who can't do anything right and loves chaos.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a son who flew a drone over San Francisco airport, which had to be shot down by the U.S. Air Force, and then broke people's windshields when it pulverized into pieces, I think you'd probably be annoyed also. But for all we know, he could also think that Jett is super clever and hilarious and resourceful. He just needs to be put in line a little bit, so he sends him to the Oasis. But he might think highly of Jett. We really don't know.
But like you could start to feel the way that Vlad thinks about his son when, number one, even though Vlad is not in this book and he doesn't seem like he's with Jett all that often, you could tell that he knows what Jett does, like how big of a troublemaker Jett really is. Because, like, at the beginning of the book, when Jett calls Vlad on his phone, Vlad quickly puts the pieces together.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He is in the book, actually. I take that back. He does call him, and he does.
Right. So Vlad quickly puts those pieces together and says to Jett, you're not supposed to have a phone. But if a normal kid called his parent, I think the parent would just think that, like, the Oasis let him have his phone just to call the parent. I don't think they'd automatically go to, like, my son stole the phone.
Right, so you're saying he does know his kid.
He does know his kid, even though he's not much in the book. Sticking with Vlad on this dynamic, Vlad and his employees, like, specifically Vlad and Nat, like, what do you think is there? Like, Vlad kind of seems like he doesn't even, like, know who's a good, because Nat seems like a genius coder, and he gets stuck with the role of, like, babysitting Jett.
Well, I think he's sent to the Oasis to babysit Jett. Now, it could be that this is, to somebody like Vlad, if he chooses you. He handpicks you to take care of his son. Maybe that's like the most important
Or that's
job
the
he can
least.
give you.
I think that,
Or
like,
the least.
if I was a professional coder and I got stuck babysitting some billionaire's son, I'd be a little mad.
At a camp in the woods with no phone.
Right, like I'd be pretty mad, and only eating veggies all day.
But interestingly, is that Matt's reaction to it?
So no, it's not. So I actually find that super interesting. I think Matt is actually like a quick to adapt guy. Like
He definitely gets into it.
Right, he gets into the Oasis pretty quickly.
Well,
that might be a little bit because of Ivory. Like the Oasis is like hypnotizing him, saying, "Oh, the Oasis is the best."
no, but there's something to the word unplugged, right? It's the title of the book. It's also in the last sentence of the book. The last sentence of the book is Jett saying that in his family, when it comes to the unplugged life, I'm the brains of the family.
I think we should, just for a second, talk about Grace quickly, because she's an important character in the book.
Yeah, I tried to avoid talking about her this whole time because I find her very annoying. But
That's all your thoughts on her? She's very annoying?
she's definitely annoying. She's a know-it-all. She's very obsessed with the Oasis. And so anybody that is at all doing anything against the Oasis's rules,
I
like
have to
Jett...
disagree on one thing you just said.
Okay.
I don't think she's a know-it-all. Like, she doesn't even seem all that smart. She seems mature, but not smart. Like, it never said anywhere that she's very smart.
Well, she's kind of like a policewoman for the Oasis. Anybody
Right.
that's doing anything
She's like
against
the
the
adult
rules.
in the kids group.
Yeah, but the authority figure adult. Like as if she works at the
annoying
Oasis.
adult in the kids group.
Yeah, so for a personality like Jett's, who basically follows no rules, and she's like a policewoman for all the rules, they clash a lot. And I think
I think Grace will grow up to be a lawyer.
by the way, totally. She would totally grow up to be a lawyer and a good one. She'd be a very good lawyer. But like she is the type that decides that because she sees Needles eat a little mouse because he's a predator, she decides in her own head that he could take care of himself in the wild. And so she would go and release him on her own without consulting her friends. Like she didn't do that because Brandon did it first.
To be honest with you, I think Grace is like a little too mean to her friends. Like I don't think she
is a little mean to her friends. I agree.
I don't think she really likes Tyrell. Like I don't think she really loves Tyrell. I think she's better friends with Tyrell than she obviously is with Jett or Brooklyn. I don't think she really loves Tyrell.
But it's because Tyrell's a bit of a floor mat.
Right.
So he just kind of goes along with whatever. I think what this story illustrates, actually, is how you could have people... This happens a lot in camp or in, like, weekend sports tournaments. Like, anywhere where you go for a limited period of time. As kids or even as adults. Sometimes you're in a circumstance that brings you together in a really intense way. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a lasting friendship. It would be nice if it is. I would like to believe that it is. But sometimes all you need is people to get you through not only a 6-week camp, but getting you through something that you want to accomplish. You don't necessarily have to go on to be like lifelong friends or married to each other. All right, we're going to finish up this episode by booking in a rating. Sam, how do you rate Gordon Korman's Unplugged on a scale of 1 to 10?
I rate it an 8.5.
8.5, okay. I'm going to give it an 8.
Solid.
Making our combined rating
a 16.5 out of 20, which is pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
So we want to introduce something into our episodes that we call Bookwards Book Awards. Bookwards Book Awards is we have the 5 main things of what makes up a good book. The 5 main things are a good main character, a good supporting character, a good setting, a good plot twist, and a good villain. We think all 5 of these combined will make a very good book. So basically what we do is for each of these categories, we have a first place, a second place, and a third place spot.
And as we continue to read new books, we're going to award the best main character, best supporting character, best setting, best plot twist, and best villain from the books that we're reading. And each week, the new book that we read has the chance to supplant previous week's winners. So, since this is our first ever book, so far Unplugged is in first place in all 5 categories. The best main character, Jett. The best supporting character, Brooklyn. The best setting, in the Oasis. The best plot twist, which was Ivory as a gangster running an alligator farm. And the best villain, Ivory. So far, Unplugged is in first place in all 5 categories. But we'll see what happens next week when we read a new book that we will announce in a moment.
Before we do that, remember, we love when you read with us, and we want your thoughts about books we should feature on the pod. Follow us on Instagram and X at Bookwards Pod, and let us know what books you want us to do.
And now, to reveal next episode's book, it will be none other than Holes by Louis Sacker. We'll see you next time.